what we're going to do tonight is learn how to handle those negative triggers. So I guess I'll start off by just explaining why I did this workshop. So the main point is I wanted to show people the amazing tools that I'm using at the moment with both myself and with my clients in my coaching business as to how you can handle a lot of situations so much better. And there's obviously a lot of, suffering going on at the moment. There's a lot of difficulty with lockdowns here in Melbourne. And I'm not sure where everybody is out there, but I might just bring up the chat box wherever that has gone. There it is. So just say a quick hello in the chat box just to have some interaction so I can see you're all there and you're all active. Just say a quick hello in the chat box, and that would be great just to say a quick hello. Just to test out that everybody can see the chat box. So there's a little button. Here we go. We've got a hi from Manna. Great to see you again, Manna. Sonia, hello all. Glad to be here. Denise, hi. I'm in Warrandyte, Victoria. Welcome. Leslie, hello. Excellent. So I'm in Geelong, for those of you who don't know. Manna, lovely to see you from Melbourne. Excellent, Manna. Awesome. So welcome along. This is going to be a fun session. And we're going to learn how to make some better pictures in our mind, create a better version of ourselves, and fire off some better feelings in our body. That's the idea. And we're going to attach them to your negative triggers so that when you see that thing that makes you, fire up in the wrong way, whether it's anger, sadness, guilt, shame, sends you into addiction, whatever it might be, the idea is we're going to fire off a better feeling. So that's the plan today, which is why I love sharing this stuff with everybody. Hello there, Dulles and Lisa. How you going? Nice to see you popping into the room. Nice to see you. So that's what we're doing today, and I'll take you through that PowerPoint presentation. Shows you how to do it step by step. So you don't need to, I will make sure I email this out to everybody. I think at the last event, I also have to email that out to those guys that came to the Energy Booster. So there's a few things that we can talk about today with regards to how we manage those negative triggers. Now, obviously, what happens to us when, you see something and you just have this overwhelming emotional response that's just out of context. Maybe it's an email, which are just letters on a screen, and that's one of the examples I'll go through. It's just words on a screen, letters on a screen, and yet the meaning of those letters fire us up and all of a sudden we're not happy. So I'll go through some of those examples. I'll go through another example for myself, which was for a builder who we had here at one stage at our place, and every time I saw the bathroom that was renovated, I'd get angry because of the last little argument we had at the end. I'd be ruminating on that, and so I just wanted to handle this emotion because 95% of it was fantastic, but this little argument at the end was just sort of coloured the whole thing. So I wanted to handle that sort of a negative trigger. Now, this little tool that we'll go through tonight can also be good for little bad habits as well, to create a better image of yourself. So if you're jumping on, if you could also just mute yourself as you come through, and I'll just sort of check in as we go through so we get a nice clean, I can't find the button, but we will find it, and make sure we're all nice. And if you could mute yourself as you come in, that's great. So that's what we're doing tonight. We're managing our negative triggers, we're firing ourselves up with better pictures, and we're actually going to create a better image of ourselves, someone who's handled all these situations. So before we get started, just have a think about what your negative triggers are, why you've shown up here today to learn some new tools and some new tricks and some new techniques, and what would the antidote to that be? Because as we start thinking about your antidote to these negative triggers, you find that you start thinking about what the solution might be. Because we actually do have all of these fantastic ways and tools and methods and ways to heal inside of us, but we have to just learn the structure of how we do things. And I'm going to use the structure you already use inside yourself, the way you manufacture your triggers, and we're going to use it to produce a better trigger. So sounds pretty good, doesn't it? So let's jump in and I'll have a look. And it's 7:09 now. We've got quite a few people in the room. So what I'll do is I'll start the presentation part to show you what's going on. I'll do a quick introduction of myself and what I'm doing and why I'm doing this session, and then I will jump into the content. So I'll just go and grab my share screen. All right, well, welcome everyone. So this is all about handling emotional triggers and finding balance. My name's Matthew Tait from Fork in Road Coaching. And the idea is we want to end up like that guy on top of the mountain, feeling good, and obviously having covered all of our dramas and making sure that we've handled all of our triggers, even if it's only one trigger at a time. And so my name is Matthew Tait, and my coaching practice is called Fork in Road Coaching, and I like to help people overcome the anxieties, the overwhelm, and that's what I take people through. So today, this is what's on the agenda: handling emotional triggers, a brief introduction of myself, a description of trigger problems and solutions, so just to get you into the context of what we're talking about, and then an activity where I'll run you through a method to overcome your negative triggers, and we'll do it step by step, and I'll introduce all the method and etc. And then a little wrap up at the end. So, as I said before, my name is Matthew Tait. I help people with anxiety, with stress and overwhelm. I have one-on-one coaching sessions, I have coaching programs and online courses, and I love, especially at this time, I really wanted to ramp it up a little bit and really help some people, even if all we do today is share this free content and that's the only contact we have. I hope you take this away with you today and learn how to manage those negative triggers and start playing with this tool, and at the very least start to learn how your system works. So why coaching and fork in the road? Well, I was at my fork in the road a few times in my life, and anxiety, stress and overwhelm has definitely been something that I've had to deal with, and that's all part of my story. So I understand that feeling of being lost, where you're feeling a bit broken, it's just not working, and you're just thinking, well, how am I going to get out of this? Fortunately, through coaching and through mindset training, I have discovered there are hundreds of ways to get through, which gives you hope. And without hope, we kind of lose energy. But with hope, we'll try the next thing and then the next thing. And so there is a little boy, peekaboo there through the eyes, and that was kind of how I was. I was like, no, it's not happening, it's not happening. Yet my body and my mind were begged to differ. I was going through these anxious different times in my life. So a little housekeeping before we begin. This is complimentary today, right? So I've got nothing to sell to you guys today, so you can relax, and we're just going to have some fun. I'll share with this new tool, and the most important thing for me is just to meet people who want more out of life and network and get to know you guys and get to know what you need and share with you these amazing tools. So if everyone's cool with that, there's nothing to sell. So I'm just making sure you're all aware of that. So the only thing I give people an opportunity for today, if you click in a link, which I'll put in the chat box shortly, or you put in the chat box let's chat, then basically I offer a one-on-one complimentary roadmap session to people. So if you're stuck and you're trying to get moving in your life, and it's difficult in this lockdown time, but we don't even plan for anything. And so that's what I offer people in this session. It's complimentary, it goes for an hour, and the idea is to show you what I do and introduce myself. So this roadmap session, it's one-on-one and it's complimentary, remember that. So if you click on that chat box today, then I'll reach out to you and just say, let's chat in that chat box, and I'll touch base and we'll arrange a time via Zoom, because you're all here via Zoom, so we can do it via Zoom and have a chat. And so I guess to explain what that is, it's a one-on-one session where I figure out one of three things. Your starting point, and that might be a starting point where you don't know what's keeping you and holding you back, and I help people resolve those internal conflicts. The second part is point B on your Google Maps search. So if you go to a cafe, you've got a very specific location you put into the map, and then the map figures out how to get you there. Well, point B in your life, a lot of people don't actually know how to get there. They don't even know where they're going. So you don't have much sort of chance if you don't know which direction you're going up the road. And then finally, the gap between the two, like how you actually bring those two together, of where you're at now and where you want to go. So those are the three areas we work on. If you know where you are, great. If you know where you're going, great. And if you don't know how to get there, then that's where I help people with their mindset. So now let's jump into the program. So emotional trigger problems, and why I created this workshop. Well, I had my own triggers. As you can imagine, we've all got our triggers. We're human beings, and we'll always still have more triggers. But if you know how to handle them, then we're so much better equipped to handle life. And so I had my own triggers, and as I said, I had the builder story, I had emails that used to fire me up when I was younger, and there's a whole range of other stories which you can go through. And then of course you've got those big ones, the ones that are deeper and more meaningful. Now, what I'm going to share today doesn't necessarily resolve everything inside you, but it allows you, if you're currently seeing a psychologist or you're seeing a therapist of some sort or an NLP practitioner or a SDH practitioner, if you don't know what those are, I can show you what all those things are. But if you're not seeing someone, then in between, or if you are seeing someone, in between, you've got a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and you could be, flipping your lid. You need something to help you get through. That's if you are proactive and have already done that stuff. But if you're like me and you get no help like I used to, then this sort of thing can be a godsend and a bit of a lifesaver. So let's run with this little gun analogy so we have a look. So what happens? You pull a trigger, or a trigger gets pulled, and then a bullet explodes out of the barrel. And so as it explodes out of the barrel, what happens? That bullet explodes and moves towards a target with destructive force, causing damage. Now, I'm sure you get the analogy between our emotional triggers and how they can be destructive. They can also serve a purpose at different times, but a lot of the time they don't actually serve us. And so examples of your emotional triggers could be rejection, betrayal, unjust treatment, challenged beliefs, loss of control, and disapproval of yourself or disapproval of others. These are the things that could be firing off your trigger where somebody has disrespected you or something like that. And so what we do is we then have an anger or a sadness or a helplessness or a shame or a guilt or something fires off when you have those negative triggers. And so you end up with like this poor lady where she's just not happy, Jan, and she's really finding herself not going to have a good result. Like if she's communicating with someone with that look in her eyes, it's not going to end well. She's not going to get the result she's after. Though she'll try, and as what I've tried, if I got angry. And what can happen is the person who may have actually done wrong by you actually ends up looking pretty good if you flip your lid and you end up coming over the top. And it's very easy to look like the bad guy, but if you can hold your state together, you can always come up with a better solution. So the example would be aggressive emails at work, and then the Incredible Hulk comes out and he gets a bit fired up. And that's not useful to anyone. And so what's actually happening in that moment? It's anger. Why is the Hulk angry after that disrespectful email? Lack of respect, maybe that's something that's triggered them off. Unjust treatment, loss of control. There's a whole range of reasons why that person in particular will get emotional over what is only text on a screen. But of course, the meaning behind it is what really matters. So if we respond with anger, the damage is done. Like pulling that trigger, we don't want to do that. So just like pulling the trigger, we want to avoid that damage. So if we respond with anger, damage is done. We want to avoid the damage and find a better path for a better outcome from our actions. That's what we want. Put in the chat box, everyone, a situation where you are not happy with your emotional response. And what's an example of a situation? So can you think of something that's triggered you off, where like it might have been an email at work? Has anyone got any ideas in the chat box? I'll just bring up my chat box again, which has vanished on me. In the chat box, and I'll just stop share so I can grab my chat box again. So who's got an example of something that's triggered you off? Maybe it's been cut off in traffic. That's normally a good one. Or it might be an email, or like me with the builder. Someone yells at you at traffic and flips you the bird, and that triggers you off. And so that's a good one. And so I want you to think about the triggers where you think something's coming again and again and you would like to handle it better. You see, what happens is our brain, it's got this frontal lobe here, this prefrontal cortex they call it. It's the new part of the brain. And I'm just saying, I'm tired, stressed, and my patience is lowered. Someone said, and I feel anger as a result. That's fantastic. So we want to handle those triggers, right? And so what we're going to start to do is create a picture of what happens at that moment of the trigger. Because the real value here is if you find the trigger point, you can attach a better feeling to it with creating another picture. And that's what we're going to do today in the little activity at the end. There's some great examples. Thanks, Sue. Thank you, Dallas. And thank you, Leslie. So that's what we want. We want to fire off a better trigger, but we want to use your existing trigger. You're already doing it. You've already got that, tired and stressed, patience lowered. And that's what we want. We want to use that for good instead of evil, where you might not react in a way that's useful and giving you a good result. So we want to fix these trigger problems. And so these emotional triggers, we want to make sure we handle them. And today I'm going to share with you a method of tricking your mind into firing off a positive image, a positive feeling or emotion. That's what we're going to do today. So what is this method called? Drum roll, please. It's called the SWISH pattern. Now, it's very interesting, this SWISH pattern. When I first started using this, it was only ever really described as something for a very light kind of a state, a very light situation, like biting your nails. And that's actually the first thing I used it for, because it doesn't look good if you're trying to be professional if you're biting your nails. So I used it to actually stop myself, and I have, and it worked absolutely brilliantly. But then as I started to read more and research more in the field of NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, and in more simple conversational language, it's your mind, neuro, the words we think and speak, which is the linguistic, and the patterns that we have, which is those patterns that come out of us, which is the programming part of it. So your mind has words that you think and words that you speak out loud, and they're a bit of a clue as to what's going on deep in your unconscious, which is actually running the show. So if you're having that emotional trigger, it's actually your mind trying to look after you from something that happened all the way in the past. So that's why this little system, this little SWISH pattern, is actually more than just fixing up biting nails or some minor thing. You can actually do some quite deep work with a bit of other change work. And we're going to mix some other things to help you get more out of this pattern, which is using what you're already doing. You're already triggering yourself off, but we're going to trigger it and connect it to a better picture. And so this particular method was developed by Richard Bandler, published in his book in 1985. And he's one of the co-founders of NLP, or that mindset technique. And now there are hundreds of different techniques within this method. So using your brain for a change is the name of the book that he wrote. In chapter 9 is where he first published this SWISH pattern. And so Bandler's technique, we need to create two pictures. And two pictures, picture one is the current negative picture. So this will be a picture that's in your mind's eye, and you'll have it. So for me, I'll explain my picture in a moment, but mine was walking into the bathroom, seeing a shelf that was built by that builder. I would then see his face and then get angry. So that was not very useful, I can tell you, because I wanted to enjoy the bathroom. He'd actually done a great job. It was just that one little argument at the end that I was ruminating on. So I thought, okay, no more. I want to sort this. I just want to feel neutral and good about my bathroom. And so I'd walk in there, and now I have fixed that. And when I walk in there, I feel good about being in there. It's my bathroom. I want to brush my teeth. I don't want to get angry. So picture one is me walking into my bathroom. So I want you to have a think as we go through this. What would your picture one be? What is the thing that happens just before you get triggered? And it might be you're in traffic and someone's disrespected you on the road. Maybe you saw them Maybe you heard them, and then you would have had maybe a thought in your mind, and you got mad as hell. So it's about finding it just before that trips off, and we're going to attach it to picture number 2 later on in the SWISH pattern, which is an image of self having solved the problem. So we'll go through into it, but the second picture is very different in that we're going to see yourself as your ideal self who has solved the problem. And so that's what we're going to do today. So before we do the Bandler Swish, what we're going to do is we're going to get to know a little bit about your own brain. And we're going to find out where you store reality in your personal space. What the hell does he mean by that? Well, what I'm talking about is where you store reality. What happens is, in the book which is written by Steve Andreas, which is called Transform Yourself, he's got some amazing tools in there where you get to start to unpack where your brain stores information. And that's what we're going to use today. And we're going to use your reality strategy as to where you put the pictures in your brain. So in a moment, we'll close our eyes. I'll open up the screen in a moment and stop sharing. But what we're going to do is we're going to find something in your life that is real. And so I'll stop sharing for a moment. So in the chat box, what would be an example of a picture you would have? It might be like, my car is red, and you've got a picture of your car. Or maybe it might be more specific. I've got a Ford Mustang, or I've got a Mustang, or I've got some type of car. What would be an example of, we're going to just test your reality and where it lives. And where it lives in your personal space. But let's think of something you can create a picture of. In the chat box, put an example of what you might use. It might be, I am a mother, and maybe you can create a picture of that, of what that looks like. Or maybe it is, I am an accountant. Or it could be something physical, like I have a house that's white. What would be an example in the chat box? Does anyone have any ideas on what image that they know is real? It's part of your reality now. My dog is white and her name is Sam. That's a fantastic example. Thank you, Leslie. And so to use Leslie's example, my dog is white and his name is Sam. My dog is white. Where does that picture live in your personal space? And so does anyone else have any ideas like that? I have a Kelpie dog that's called Dolly. All right, we're on the dog train now. That's great. That's awesome. So what we're doing is we're going to make a picture of this Kelpie dog or this white dog named Sam, or the Kelpie dog called Dolly, or you'll have your own reality strategy. And does anyone else have one more out there in the group? Is anyone else? I'm an artist and I love to create. That's beautiful. That's fantastic, Sonia. Thank you, Denise. Thank you, Leslie. So I've got 3 examples there. So I want you to think of something for yourself. And what we're going to do now is just going to test out your reality strategy. And so what I'll get you to do, I'll get you to close your eyes just for a moment. Make sure you're sitting down nice and safe. And close your eyes, and I want you to picture that picture. Bring up that image in your mind's eye. That image of, it could be that you're an artist, it could be a Kelpie dog, it could be a white dog. And as you've got that picture of your thing that you've chosen that is real, I want you to tell me, or not yet, but in a moment, how far in front of you is that picture? Is it like right up near your eyes? Is it like arm's length away? Just notice how far away that is. And just keep that in mind. All right, it is this far in front of me. And also notice the position where it is. Is it left, right? Is it center? Where is that picture as you close your eye in front of you? Just notice where that is. So you've got a distance in front of you. You've got where it is in position. And now the last element, or the second last element, is what's the size of the screen? Is it like a movie theater screen? Is it like a LCD huge 60-inch TV? Or is it like an iPad monitor? Like, what's the size of the screen? Just notice that for yourself. And what you're doing now is you're eliciting the details as to how your brain structures the picture of reality, because we're going to use these details later. So I'd suggest now you can open your eyes up now and put in the chat box, what came up for you? How far in front, let's start with that, was the picture? Was it like 6 inches from your eyes? Was it over here somewhere? What would be an example as to where that image was in your mind's eye? Was there a distance? Above the head and behind? That's awesome. my car right in front. That's awesome. Fantastic. Thank you, Dallas. And what's the size of the picture? Because we need to get a couple of details to help us make a picture real. In front of me, like watching a movie. So it's like a big movie, like an IMAX, or is it like the actual specifics of the size of the frame? That's what I'm looking for, very large. My image was very close to my eyes and as big as a desktop screen in the center of my forehead. That is fantastic, Denise. That's very specific. Well done. In front of me, my size of my laptop screen. Full screen, Leslie. On the other side of the room, the dog on top right. That's excellent. And Sonia's saying, lifelike, as if I was already immersed in the activity. Right, so you were in the scene. So what we want to do is remember these, and you might even write these down. If you have a pen and paper, just write down a couple of those details, because we'll come back and use those a little bit later. And bring those up so that you can use this to help you make an image even more real when you make one that we're going to create in just a moment. So now we've got our reality strategy in place. And what's interesting is if you were to go and do more, because we have a limited time, but if you were to do more work on that, it would actually get reality of certain situations. And it's amazing as you start to unpack where you put the pictures in your space, you can start to play with the qualities and your identity. It's quite amazing. And that's all in that book from Steve Andreas. And I love playing with these details. So we'll use that for good to make sure you get a good result today. I'll jump back into the presentation now. What's the name of that book? It's called Transforming Yourself by Steve Andreas. Transforming Yourself is the name of the book. So now we've just elicited our reality strategy. So we've looked at where the picture is. Make sure you write down where it was. And people had very specific answers that were sort of all in different places. And that's how your brain has stored that real picture. What size it is. So is it this big, this big? Some people had lifelike. What color it is. So the other thing is, was it vivid in color? Generally, we just generally go with vivid in color. And that's going to allow you to really see it as real. Some people it might be black and white, and so if you had black and white, just write that down, but if it was colour and it was vivid, then that's good too. So these are the details of what we can use for good. Great job. Now we are ready for the Bandler swish. So, Bandler's technique. We create two pictures. Picture number one is the first one. It's the current negative emotional trigger. So it is very important when we create this picture, we're seeing this picture through our own eyes. And as we're looking through our own eyes, we want to, it's like we're going through the scene. So when I go into the bathroom, as an example, I would look through my own eyes at what happens just before I get triggered. And that's the image we want to create. We don't want to spend too much time in there. And if that creates a big feeling for you, you can always push the image a bit further away in your mind's eye, just to reduce the feeling. But if you're okay with facing it for a little bit, then that's okay too. And so we're going to look at this image through our own eyes of the negative trigger. And we're going to see what happens at the point of being triggered, seeing it, feeling it, and hearing it. And so the question I have for everybody is, let's choose a negative emotional trigger for you guys that gets us emotional. Perhaps something you want to play with today. It might not be the biggest thing in your life. It might be something, one of those in-between ones. But it'd be really handy to set off a more positive trigger. So we're looking for a score out of 10. So I'll just go back to my chat box and just put in the chat box, what would be the score out of 10? Do you know what your trigger is? If you're happy to put it in the chat box, I understand if you don't. What's the trigger you would like to work on? What would be the trigger where you think, I just don't want to deal? I had the builder thing. I had emails at one stage. I had the nail biting, which is a habitual trigger. What would be an example in the chat box? Has anyone got any ideas in the chat box as to what would be something you would want to work on? Is it the traffic thing? Is it, like we had some examples before, shaky be people's aggression, even if not aimed at me. Yeah, okay, getting shaky when people are aggressive. And so it's good to know that if someone's aggressive, that means it's all living in here somewhere. Somewhere in their life, they've felt very, very afraid and fearful, and so they're protecting themselves by being aggressive. And that's a great trigger. And if you know what happens just before you get into that shaky state, that would be a great example. I'm aware of my triggers, which I'm glad. That's awesome, Dallas. That is, I mean, we need to know our triggers so we can handle them, right? That's fantastic. Thank you for your interaction. And so pick one. You don't have to share what it is. I followed the 2-person in the lift rule, but heaps of people didn't. Oh yeah, with one man yelling at me and he didn't care. Oh yes, that's a tricky situation in the COVID mask wearing time, isn't it? And people can get very triggered, but that's starting to get into survival, right? So it's a tricky one. I'm not quite sure how you handle that. But if he's getting aggressive in a small space, yeah, that's a little bit trickier because that could go a little bit pear-shaped. But we want to handle it and stay calm, because if he's flipping out and we're flipping out, you're going to have a very difficult elevator ride. So we still want to handle that trigger so we can think our way through it. Like I said, what happens is this front part of your brain turns up, and they call it flipping your lid. And what it does is it exposes the emotional heart of us, and that's all that comes out, which is great if you're 5 years old, not so great in the adult world. So think of one of your triggers and just put in the chat box a score out of 10 as to where it's at right now. So I'll ask you the question, how big is that problem for you in your life right now? This trigger you've chosen, the one that you really want to change. What is that out of 10? Just put in the chat box a score. We've got a 7. That's a great score. 6. We've got a 1. So not a big problem, but we might want to deal with it. This does work better with higher numbers, but we can roll with it, Dallas. Sonia's got a 7. Sia's got an 8. Denise has got a 7 to 8. Fantastic. Thanks for your interaction. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to work on your trigger, the one that you want to change. So let's now play with the triggers. Let me just jump back into my little PowerPoint. So we've given it a score out of 10. Thanks, guys. It's fantastic. And so picture 1 is the current negative emotion. So you've got your number and you've chosen it, and the higher the number, the better this works. So I want you to imagine this picture looking through your own eyes of what happens just before that negative trigger happens. Just create an image so that the next time that comes up, we're going to connect a better image to it and fire off a better feeling. So we need to find this negative emotional image. So as everybody, if you close your mind's eye, can you come up with an image? If you close your eyes now and come up with an image of this negative trigger. And what happens just before that negative trigger fires off? So have it in your mind's eye. See what you see, hear what you hear, feel what you feel just before that negative trigger fires off, and notice what happens just before you feel bad. So how do you know it's time to feel triggered? Put that in that image. Has everybody got an image? Just put Y in the chat box if everybody's got an image and you've got one that you can work with. As an image looking through your own eyes, that's very good, excellent. We've got lots of Y's coming up. So we've got an image in our mind's eye, and we can come back to that. Now, I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint, but what we'll do now is we'll practice what I call the whiteboard. And I want you to imagine now we've got that image. Now let's wipe it out and let's just reset our state. And I might ask you a funny question just to reset your emotions. And it might be something like, do you smell popcorn? Or it might be something like, what's the 7th letter of the Greek alphabet? I have no idea. But the idea is just to get you thinking, huh? And get you out of that state, right? So I might say some funny things like that, just to reset the system. And we'll come back to that whiteboard later where we're just wiping it off and we'll start again. I'll go back to the presentation. So looking through your own eyes, and how do you know it's time to feel triggered? We now have an image. So picture 1, that current negative emotion. So my example story, I had a negative emails when I was younger, and they used to throw me into a tiz. I couldn't believe it. And what I did later on, which I learned a little bit of this mindset techniques, is I learned how to fire off if I see someone being negative towards me, especially in front of other people. I used to fire off a better feeling of my ideal self, who knew it was about them, not about me, where I was more centered, and I could just, okay, that's interesting. That's just a bit of information. It doesn't actually penetrate the soul. Another example was feeling disrespected, but this time was with the builder story, where there was some disrespect going on, and it happened in a couple of different situations with a couple of different people. And so why was I triggered by that? Well, I was feeling disrespected, so I had to find a better trigger, or use the trigger for good instead of evil. And so feeling angry and feeling disrespected. So having a bigger impact than they should have for what the situation was. And we want to handle things a lot better than just being mad as hell and becoming the crazy person. You want them to look like the crazy person, and you've got your cool together. So that is picture one, and we've now got that. And so now we're going to build picture two. What is the antidote to those feelings? I'll stop the share there for a second. What is the antidote to the thing, the negative trigger that you just have made a picture of? What do you think would be the exact opposite to that, where you've got it together, where you're not triggered, where maybe you've handled the situation very well? Like, what's your ideal self? This is what's really important about the second picture. We're actually going to create an ideal self that we see ourselves doing it, not looking through our own eyes, but we'll be looking at ourselves doing these amazing things, having solved it. And I'll explain a little bit later, but my example, but is there an antidote word that comes to mind that is the opposite to how you handle that situation? What would be an example? Put in the chat box an example of the antidote situation for you. What would be an example? So if you were angry, then obviously calm, but maybe you've got some skills because your ideal self has figured it out. And no worries, Dallas, that's all good. There'll be a recording, so I will be recording this all good. So Manna, calm and wisely. Denise is breathing. Leslie is shrugging off the other person's anger and response. Recognize it's them, not me. Grounded. Fantastic answers. So imagine your ideal self, the person who's already been through all that they have to, and they now know how to handle it. They've resolved their inner conflict. They've got some tools and some methods. They've got some things they can say to make the nice boundary, to make sure that person doesn't penetrate the soul. It's amazing. So being strong in myself, knowing I'm capable. This is your ideal self. Fantastic, Rochelle. Thank you, Lily. Thank you, Leslie and Denise and Manna. All great answers. And so, fantastic answers. Thanks for your interactions, guys. It really makes this presentation so much better when we're interacting. So I'll go back to the share and your ideal self having solved this problem trigger. What is your antidote? We've just got some amazing words in there. So we're going to start to paint a picture as to what that looks like. So I put in some words here like empowered, grounded, seeing the other person's emotions inside them, but not you. It's not actually about you. You are showing up differently, so you're not being triggered and mad as hell. You're, okay, there's something going on here, but I'm okay, I'm calm. A little bit emotional, but I'm all right. And I'm now still thinking, and what's good about this situation? What could I do differently? How could I respond in a way that still protects me? What else have we got? Finding better outcomes. So you want a better outcome. If you're outcome focused, you say, well, I want a good outcome here. And sometimes it's got to be just for you because the other person's so detached. But other times you can find a good outcome for both people. And when you're thinking, you can actually come up with that. But if you're flipped your lid and you're emotional, not so easy. So what we want to do is see yourself from the observer position. The observer position is where you might float above yourself and see yourself handling that situation beautifully. You are outside of your body and you're watching yourself handle the situation with ease, with clarity, with grace, with just incredible, what's the word? There's another nice word which is gone, but you've just got it together really well and you're really, really happy and satisfied with how you handled that situation compared with perhaps the old trigger. And so it's important to ask though, with this trigger that we've just selected and the emotional picture that we've just created on the picture 1, before we go and put into this new picture 2, the ideal self picture, having solved this problem trigger, I want to ask you the question, is there any resistance to removing this trigger? And I want you to just see, I'll just stop sharing for a moment because we're going to put this answer, we need to make sure we cover this, because if we don't, we can make this pretty fluffy picture that your unconscious mind says, ain't happening, because it wants you to protect it. So an example from me was with the builder situation, and I had to ask myself, do I have any resistance to letting go of his anger every time I walk into the bathroom? Now, logically, I said, of course I don't want it, but there was a part of me that says, no, I'm not happy. So I had to listen. And I had to listen to say, all right, well, what do you need? That's the question. What do you need? Ask your mind, what do you need? What do you need to let this go? And what it said to me is, I need to know next time this happens, because there'll be more builders in the future, no doubt. And next time this happens, and there's some sort of disagreement, that A, you're going to listen to yourself when something's not quite right and it's drifting, and that you'll talk to the builder in a nice, calm way. Just, hey, just want to check in where we're at, right? So just have that conversation. And then make sure that you're looking after yourself, which minimizes the drama at the back end, right? So that's what my mind needed to know. I need to know I was going to listen to myself earlier and speak up. All right, okay, tick, all right, I've got that on the list. That's going into the picture. And then the second was, with this negative picture that was coming up, it's like, well, if you do get, shafted by a builder, which can happen, that you're going to be really strong. And for example, I texted and I should have called, right? Just had a conversation to him. And if it got heated, fine, whatever. But texting is such an impersonal way to deal with an important thing. And if I think about it, I'd handle it very differently. So it would be pick up the phone, have a conversation, or when they were around, let's have a chat. So what's going on, blah, 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 right? And do it in a calm and effective way. And of course, if someone is aggressive still, well then, you put up the wall. Fine, you've got to look after yourself. But my unconscious mind needed to know that I had this sorted, that it was all okay. And so now I'll put the question to you guys, do you have any resistance to clearing out this thing? Just put a Y or an N in the chat box. We need to just check in. And if there is a yes, if there's a word that comes up, or there's fear, or there's I'm not going to be looked after, there's a no, but no resistance, that's awesome. If you're really clear and it's really congruent, then that's perfect. Then you're ready for the next step. We've got a no problem in clearing that resistance. It's just a really important unsure. And so, yeah, that's good to know that you're unsure. Yes, it's an old pattern. So that resistance, so those people, we want to make sure we get some good answers in here. This swish will be a lot more valuable when you know you've got it sorted. So what would be a word that comes up? What does it need? What does your unconscious mind need to let go of this? Is it afraid, and what's it afraid of? Like, what is the need underneath the surface? This is about asking your mind some better questions. What would be an example of what it needs? So with why is it being an old pattern, what does it need to keep itself safe? Your mind. So that's a question. You don't have to put it in the chat box if it's deep and meaningful, but I'm sure you understand where I'm coming from. And for the unsure, for you, Denise, what does it need to keep you safe? Or to see the old pattern never helps? Right, okay, so it's not useful. That's very good. And so if it's happy to let go of that old pattern, then ask it, what else do you need? And sometimes it's worthwhile sitting with this for a little bit. What else do you need to let go of this? And we'll start the swish in a moment. But it's really important we ask that question. It seems to be about preservation of self. Well, what if your ideal self had learned what they need to learn to preserve yourself? There might be some things that you can do to love yourself. Maybe it's change perception, I am safe, to express. That's awesome. To seek understanding. Wow, that's awesome. really good answers. And so you get where I'm coming from here. Obviously, I want to make sure we get into the swish soon. But spending a moment asking your mind, what do you need, is powerful. And that's where it really juices up that ideal self. Because your ideal self will have sorted this out. Your ideal self will have that ability to preserve yourself. And that preservation might be just, it's late at night, I'm not going to go out walking by myself. It's just a random idea. But you'll have something to be nurtured, right? So we all have to start with nurturing ourselves. So I think we're getting the idea here, aren't we? The idea is make sure you put into this ideal picture of yourself that handles this trigger any resistance and what you need to do to overcome that resistance. What you need to do for your mind to be happy to let go of this old emotion, this old pattern. And so make sure you paint a really clear picture in this picture. And so I'll go back to the presentation so we build this picture a little bit more. But this is a very important bit. I just wanted to take a moment to make sure we were on there. So we've got our resistance in the chat box we talked about, and what was the antidote to that resistance, which is what we've just talked about. We need to make sure we keep the mind happy, so it's happy to swish over the top of the old picture. And so now I'll get you to close your eyes, sitting comfortably, and I want you to look at this image number 2, this ideal self, the version of you that solves this problem, has resolved it. And notice as you close your eyes, create that image of you having resolved this, that image of you having, knowing exactly what to do. You've solved this many years ago. This is that version of you. And you know what that version is, don't you? You know what they need. You've just unpacked some of the things your mind needs. Put that in there as well. And really sit in that feeling for a moment. And as you look at that picture, I want you to notice where it's positioned, wherever it is. It might be to the left, to the right, wherever it is. And I want you to drag it in your mind's eye. You can even use your hands to pretend like you're dragging it, and drag it into the reality position you created before. And bring it into the distance out from your eyes that the reality picture was. Some of it was your dog, some of it you were an artist. Everyone had different answers. Wherever that reality picture is, the distance out from your eyes, the size of the picture. And I'll just stop sharing there. The size of the picture, however big the reality picture was before. So you've got the distance out from your eyes, you've got the size of the picture, its vivid color, if that was your reality picture, and its position, left, right, up, down. Everyone had different answers. Move it to that same place that you saw your reality, the real picture, and move your ideal self. And let's put in there you feeling totally satisfied that you've resolved this problem. And create an image of you seeing yourself, right? So you're floating above yourself and you're seeing yourself in that situation in the future, and you have solved it. You are in control. You know what to do. You've got the skills. You've got it sorted. And you've got woven in there whatever the fears were of your unconscious mind, you've put in there what it needs to let go of this feeling. And they're all in there marinating in this beautiful picture, watching you, and maybe you're standing a bit taller, you've got it together, the drama's happening around you, and you just notice how you're handling it just so well. You're not being triggered, you're actually nice and calm. And you're speaking to them and trying to work with the person. And you've got the skills now because you're that person now. Remember that. Sounds good, doesn't it? So I want you to really notice that image of your confident self. See the look on your face, the compassion for the other person, but the compassion for yourself is vital. And you've got this image now. And I want to see now in the chat box, just put a Y if you are happy with your ideal self image that you've just created. And that you're in there, you're watching it, you're looking at yourself. Excellent. Manar's good to go. Leslie's good to go. Sonia's good to go. Great work. And I want you to make sure you're happy. Denise is happy. Excellent. You've got your image. Lily's happy. That's fantastic. Rochelle's good to go. Awesome. All right, so we're getting pretty good now. Well done, guys. Thank you for interaction. So we've got this picture of our ideal self. I'll go back to my presentation, otherwise I'll waffle on. Make sure I keep myself going in the right direction. And so notice who you would be without the problem. This is the person that solved the problem. And I want you to think about this as a great generalization that could actually affect many other areas of your life if your ideal self shows up. And noticing the ripple effect of this idea, this ideal self, has across many other parts of your life because you're showing up differently. You're not as triggered. You're using your mind to work your way through the problems. And really take notice of that. And notice how you don't need to do this old behavior or trigger anymore, as you are a different person in that image that you can see. We've got the location in the reality position. We have the size in the reality size of picture. Remember the size, however big it was. And we have to ensure also that it's the same color as reality. It was a vivid color, whatever that looked like. And so you've used your mental process to create a really powerful picture now. So now let's spend a moment marinating in this, in this great emotion, immersed in your ideal self-image as you watch yourself having solved this trigger, satisfied and pleased with yourself. I want you to see what you see when you see this ideal self. I want you to hear what you hear. I invite you to feel what you feel. And I invite you to think the thoughts that would come into your mind. Just spend a moment enjoying that feeling. This is your ideal self that has it sorted. Spending a moment really amplifying those feelings. You might even bring the picture a little bit closer if that increases the feeling in your body. Great job. And now it's time to swish. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to get you to do the whiteboard thing. We're going to wipe the screen off. I'm going to ask you, what's the third letter of the Greek alphabet? I have no idea. Do you smell popcorn? No. What did you have for lunch? I think I had a roll. I can't remember. I had a sandwich. That's just to break your state and get you back to neutral. Okay, so now we're going to have some fun with the swish pattern. Back into the presentation, the first thing we need to do, now I'll take you through this step by step and then I'll do it with you and we'll do it much quicker than I do on the screen here. This is to show you how it's going to run. The very first thing we do, step one, is we recreate the problem emotional trigger image, which is the picture you made as to what happens just before you get triggered. And we'll do this in a moment. The second thing we do then, you'll have your eyes closed in this process, you'll have that image in front of you, and then you'll have a second image showing up. This is your ideal self, but it'll be small and dark in the right-hand bottom corner. Okay? Small and dark. And then what we'll be doing is we'll be swishing, that's why it's called the swish pattern, picture number 2 over the top of picture number 1. And as that's swishing up, what I'll get you to do is actually say the words out loud. Swish, because that means that's occupying your mind while you're doing it. And you can even use your hands to do this. And I'll show you in the moment full screen. And as that small dark dot of an image number 2, swishes over the top of the other one, image number 1 shrinks down to a little dot in the opposite corner. So you can imagine it's kind of like sliding across. And then you'll find image number 1 shrunken down, and you'll be left with image number 2 filling your screen in your vision, in your imagination. It'll be filling the screen in the reality position. So it's going to be in the location and the size like reality, which is what we just built. And then we will wipe the screen and we'll start again. And we're repeating steps 1 to 5 faster and faster. So that's what we'll be doing in these steps. Now, I'll give you this and you can go away and practice this later on. But basically now, I just freestyle it and we just do it together. So that is what we're doing. So picture 1, we'll bring it up in a moment And then picture 2, we'll put dark dot down the bottom right. I'm showing it on my left. It's my right, your left. But you'll put it on your right. And then you'll swish it over the top and watch the other image disappear down to the bottom. Now this neurologically changes the trigger when it happens again, and I'll love to hear some feedback. Please send me emails if you find that the swish comes automatically. Right, so here we go. I want you to close your eyes. I invite you to close your eyes and to imagine picture number 1. Bring it up in your mind's eye. And as you bring it up in your mind's eye, I want you to bring picture number 2, small and dark, in the bottom right-hand corner. And picture number 2, what we're going to do is we're going to swish it over the top. 3, 2, 1, swish it over the top, make it bigger, and covering over the other picture as the other picture shrinks down to the bottom left corner. So it's like sliding up and taking up the full screen. And I want you to bring that picture in your mind's eye with your eyes closed and bring that picture into the reality position. And if you bring it closer, you might feel those feelings stronger. Really feel those feelings of your ideal self, the self that has solved this problem. You're seeing yourself dealing with the situation really well, looking from the observer position. And the feeling is so good. And just marinate in those feelings just for a moment. Seeing what you see, hearing what you hear, feeling what you feel, and notice where you feel that confidence, that strength, that resilience, that calm in the body. And then think what you think when you've got that sorted, your ideal self. Doing really well. And whiteboard. So I want you to imagine now a whiteboard clearing off that state. And we're going to speed this up and neurologically connect your trigger to that amazing feeling and that amazing picture. So imagine a whiteboard and you just wiped it out and you're starting again. I might even say, do you smell popcorn? Unless someone's making popcorn. No. Breaking state. All right, we're now back to neutral. Bring back picture number 1. We'll start to speed this up. Picture number 1, bring that to the front of the screen again, which is your vision with your eyes closed. Picture number 1. Picture number 2, bottom right, dark little dot. And say the word swish as picture 2 becomes big and bright, explodes through the other picture, and the other picture shrinks down to a small dot in the bottom left-hand corner and disappears. Marinating in that big and bold picture that's in front of you of your ideal self in the reality position. Seeing what you're seeing, hearing what you're hearing, feeling what you're feeling as you stand there looking in the observer position, and you're just so proud of yourself. You're so satisfied. And notice those feelings. And then whiteboard again. Let's bring back the whiteboard. Let's wipe it all out. Let's imagine we're smelling, not imagine. Do you smell popcorn? Of course you don't. Unless someone's cooking popcorn at home. What's the third letter of the Greek alphabet? Somebody else knows. I don't. Now we reset the state. You've seen the whiteboard. You've cleared off the screen with your eyes still closed. And now let's bring back picture number 1. And I'll just do one more slow round and then we'll start to speed it up in a moment. Picture 1, bring it up into your mind's eye with your eyes closed. Picture 2, bottom right, small and dark dot. And now swish over the top, picture number 2, your ideal self. As picture number 1 shrinks down to a dot in the bottom left and disappears. And all you can see is picture number 2, your ideal self. Having solved this problem, and you're marveling at how far you've come. You've got all the skills, you've got all the techniques, and you are certain inside yourself. Hold it in the reality position and feel those feelings one more time. See what you see, looking at yourself. Feel what you feel as you see yourself really got this together. And hear what you hear as you've solved this problem. And think the thoughts that go through your head as you see yourself solve this problem. You haven't had this problem for a long time now because you have got it sorted. And break state. Whiteboard. Now we will speed it up. And this is where I'll do it faster and faster. And as we go through, you might find it tricky to reproduce the image number 1 because we're going to do it fast. And we want that. That's actually a good thing. And so just follow along with my voice. Okay, closing the eyes and notice picture number 1, the problem trigger situation, looking through your own eyes in that moment. Picture number 2, bottom left. Swish over the top, bringing that picture to the reality position, that ideal self. Picture number 1's disappeared and picture number 2's taken over. Whiteboard. Picture number 1, bring that back. Picture number 2, bottom right. Swish over the top. The other one disappears. Reality position, ideal self, feeling good. Whiteboard, clear off the screen. Do you smell popcorn? Bring back picture 1. Picture 2, bottom right. Swish over the top. Picture 2's big and bright in the reality position. Ideal self, feeling good. Whiteboard. Picture 1, bring that back. Picture 2, bottom left. Swish over the top. And say the word swish as you do it. Bring it into the reality position. Whiteboard. Picture 1, picture 2, bottom right. Swish over the top. Whiteboard. 1, 2, bottom right. Swish. Whiteboard. 1, 2, bottom right. Swish. Whiteboard. And relax. You can open your eyes now for a moment. Now, let's do a little bit of quick calibration. This is round 1 we've done just now. And how are we doing for time? We're doing good for time. So round 1 we've just done. We'll do 2 more rounds like that. Quickly put in the chat box, as you bring up that image number 1, how are we going? Can you bring up image 1 still? Or is it kind of hard to construct now that we've neurologically played with that old problem? Put in the chat box for me. If you think about that old problem, what's the score out of 10 now? If you put yourself in the future, you put yourself in that situation, how do you feel about that right now? What's the feeling? Out of 10, you got a 4. That's a good movement from the previous number. I think it was 7 before. What's the number if you put yourself in that future situation? We've got 3, we've got a 5, 1, disappearing and harder to find. 3, image 1 is disappearing. Awesome. 2, that's great. So that's a really good result. The image 1 is disappearing and harder to find. Awesome. So that's a really nice calibration. So you've moved it forward. The emotional trigger has been reduced a little bit. Now we still want to keep you safe, and that's still part of the deal, but we don't want that overreaction. And with the situation I had with the builder, I was like an 8 or a 9. I was just not happy with how I was responding. But what I found is I reduced myself down to a 3, and I was cool with 3. Actually, I was all right. So I still want a little bit of, but I wasn't triggered anymore. I can still enjoy my bathroom. Maybe I'll go in and get someone to clean me up, tidy me up, or I'll do it myself to myself. Now let's do another round. So it's very interesting, isn't it? What we want is that next time that trigger comes up, that this thing automatically swishes. And it's such a cool thing when it neurologically does it by itself. But even if it doesn't, you can think, I'm just not happy with this. Oh, hang on, I'm going to swish it. I'm going to bring this other image that I've created over the top. Right, let's jump in. There's some low numbers there, actually. Really happy with those results. Let's try again. Are we ready? Let's jump in. So, closing your eyes, let's jump in and let's do a bit more tidy up on the swish. Picture number 1, with your eyes closed, looking through your own eyes, seeing what you saw, hearing what you heard, feeling what you felt when you were triggered. You might have trouble seeing it. Whatever comes up is fine. Picture number 2, bottom right-hand corner. And swish over the top. Bring it into the reality picture. Bring number 2, the ideal self. Feel the feelings. The other image is shrunk, small and dark and gone on the bottom left-hand side. You've got picture number 2, the ideal self. The one that's sorted this out. The one that's handling it. You're so proud to see yourself in the observer position, just you've got it. And you might even notice that it kind of transforms as you spend some time in this image, and you even drop into the body of that ideal self. And you do notice that, oh, yeah, I'm becoming that person. And whiteboard. Wipe it all out in your mind's eye. Do you smell popcorn? What did you have for lunch? What's the 17th letter of the Greek alphabet? I don't know. Now, let us do it again. Picture number 1. Bring that up. Eyes closed. Picture number 1 is on the front of your screen, in your mind's eye, straight in front of you. Looking through your own eyes. Now bring picture 2 bottom right and swish over the top as picture 1 shrinks to nothing. Picture 2 takes over in the reality position. Big and bright, in that reality position, feeling good, seeing yourself, marveling at how you're handling the situation, the skills you've acquired, and the situation that you feel amazing. Getting better outcomes. Spend some time in that feeling. And whiteboard. Picture number 1. Bring that back. Picture number 2, bottom right. Swish over the top. Picture 1 disappears. Picture 2 is now big and bright in the reality position. Feeling amazing. Feeling incredible. Absolutely have this sorted. You haven't had that issue for such a long time. You are proud of yourself. You are satisfied. You are feeling amazing. And whiteboard. And now we'll pick up the pace. Picture 1, bring that back. Picture 2, bottom right. Swish over the top. Reality position. Feeling amazing. Enjoy those feelings. I don't mind sitting in the good feeling for a bit. And whiteboard. Imagine a whiteboard. Picture 1, bring it back. Picture 2, swish from the bottom right. It's probably happening automatically now, isn't it? Bring it into the reality position. Feeling amazing at how incredible you are. Your new ideal self. Feel those feelings. And whiteboard. Now let's pick up the pace a bit more. Picture 1, bring it back. Through your own eyes, that problem state. Picture 2, bottom right. Swish. Whiteboard. Picture 1. Picture 2, bottom right. Swish. Whiteboard. Picture 1. Picture 2. Swish. Reality position. Feeling good. And whiteboard. Picture 1. Picture 2, bottom right. Swish. Reality. And whiteboard. Okay. Let's now open our eyes and come back to the chat box. And what's the score now out of 10? What is the score out of 10 for that problem situation? So you're going into the future, you're going to have that situation that used to trigger you off, and what number do you have now? So Leslie's gone down a little bit more to a 3. That's fantastic. You're in this future, you've got this problem situation that used to come up. Mano's down to a 3, well done. And you were a 5 before, well done. So you shifted a little bit more. Denise is 2, well done. I'm just looking at the numbers before, really good, fantastic. Rachel is 2, fantastic, and awesome work. And 0, and my new age moved to the ripple effect. No, my new image moved to the ripple effect. Wow, so that is awesome. Some good numbers coming through there. And we can do it one more time. We have a little bit of time left if you would like to. The idea here is, what I did is I actually created one image for the biting of the nails, one image, the same image, which I then added more to for handling the builder, and another image, which is part of the same one generalization, the same image, I just added more details in for handling negative emails. And I'm just noticing what happens is our unconscious mind starts to move towards this image of self. It doesn't realize we've just done some fun things. It's like, well, no, I'm going to make this happen. Because have you ever had that moment where you have self-sabotage? It's not self-sabotage. It's you fulfilling the identity locked in back here somewhere. We're creating a new one. We're reminding you of the incredible power that's already inside your body and your mind. You just had deleted it. It's already been there for a long time, but now it's like we've unlocked that special room where all the goodies are, and it's like all this treasure trove of jewels. It's amazing. So do you fancy one more go before I do the wrap up? One more round? What do you reckon? Just put Y in the chat box if you'd like another round. Yeah, sure thing. Yeah, sure. Okay, great. Thanks, Leslie. Thanks, Denise. All right, let's do one more round. And you can see how we've had to build it up to get the knowledge into you, and now you're good to go. So, all right, cool. We've got enough yeses. Let's do it. All right, so bring back image number 1 if you can, and if you can't, that's cool. Just close your eyes and imagine that trigger situation happening, and you're looking through your own eyes, and you've got that image as to what that looks like. Let's bring back picture number 2, bottom right, and swish. Say the word swish as you do it. You can even use your hands like this. Have your eyes closed there, of course, so you can't see me. And whiteboard. I'll get you into that position again. Picture number 1, picture number 2, bottom right, swish, reality position, seeing yourself, feeling amazing, absolutely incredible. Marinate in those feelings for a bit. And whiteboard. You might want to stay in the feelings later on. You can always bring back the picture, can't you? And just sit in there and imagine what life is like. Picture 1, bring that back. Picture 2, bottom right. Swish over the top. Picture 1 disappears into a dot in the bottom left. Picture 2 is in the reality position. Feeling those feelings, seeing yourself doing incredible things, marveling. And every now and then you might even find yourself dropping into their body and just experiencing what it's like to have it together. A new trigger has been created. Whiteboard, let's wipe that out. Picture 1, bring that back. Picture 2, bottom right. Swish over the top. Bring it close to your body. In the reality position, make that feeling intense. Feeling real. Seeing what you see. Hearing what you hear. Feeling what you feel. Noticing where you feel it in the body. Thinking what you think. Spend some time marinating in that feeling. And whiteboard. Let's wipe that out. What did you have for dinner? We don't need to know. So it's just a break state. Okay, and again, picture 1, picture 2, bottom right, swish, in close, feel the feelings, whiteboard. Now let's pick up the pace. Picture 1, bring that back, looking through your own eyes, the problem state. Picture 2, bottom right, swish, reality position, feeling good, whiteboard. Picture 1, picture 2, swish, reality, feeling good, whiteboard. Picture 1, picture 2, bottom right, swish, reality position, whiteboard. 1, 2, bottom right, swish, reality, feel good, whiteboard. 1, 2, bottom right, swish, reality, whiteboard. Whew, I can feel a little something going on myself. I didn't even properly create an image. Great. So, open your eyes now, take a big breath, maybe open your arms up and stretch around and just feel good. How do you feel with this new ideal self? Just put in the chat box how you're feeling, anything that's coming up for you. Has that generalized now, relaxed? Great, it's all gone. Fantastic. It's what I want to hear. A little more empowered. That's great. Great, you're feeling free. This is what we want. We want to feel good, right? This is why I love sharing this stuff. I do it for free because it's so much fun. I love learning how to present it to you so that you guys get a shift. That is, just give me a buzz. So I really hope that you get something out of this little presentation, that you get some sort of positive shift. And this is a way of me getting to know the community. This is a way of me getting to show you what I can do. I'll put this recording onto my YouTube channel because I have a YouTube channel, I have a Facebook page and a website, so it'll go into all those places for people to learn how to shift themselves. So I think I've got 1 or 2 slides left. Relax, wondering why I developed the response long ago. Well, that's where the deeper work with me generally comes in, where we can explore that. You could explore it with anyone, but or if it's gone, it's gone. I don't want to bring it back if it's already gone. If we've actually done something today, that's awesome. So it's also good to have a better question as well. So like the why question is a normal question, but if you have a question along the lines of how could I really live to this, your brain will lock onto that and really start to move you towards that identity. But if there's something still trapped inside, well, that's where my self-directed healing modality comes into play, or neuro-linguistic programming. There's a philosophy of called timeline therapy, where we can revisit different things. And I like to sort of mix them up and make them work for the individual client that I have to help them resolve that point A on that roadmap, which is what a nice little clearing of the old stuff. So fantastic. I'll just go back to my presentation. I think I've only got a couple of slides left from memory, but we'll just recap what we've actually done here. So we've got step 1, we had the problem trigger image. Now you can go and create that image as long as it's just before that negative state fires off. You can do this with any of your other negative triggers. Image number 2 is your ideal self, and we spent a bit of time marinating in this incredible human being that can handle anything, right? And we bring that as a dark dot in the corner, in the bottom right hand corner, and that's generally where Steve Andreas would put it. That's where Richard Bandler would put it, so I figured why not I put it there too. Then we swish that image over the top and shrinking down the bad image, the one we don't want, image 1, to a dot. And so that image 2 is in your reality zone. You've created a reality zone. You've got to know your system a little bit better tonight. Then we go whiteboard, where we just wipe it off, ask you a silly question like, do you smell popcorn? Just to try and get you out of that state. Otherwise we'll yo-yo. We want to make sure we don't yo-yo. And then we repeat. We go up, problem trigger, picture 1, picture 2, bottom right, swish, whiteboard, blah, blah, blah. And so we've all done that tonight. So brilliant, brilliant effort for everyone. And we've now tested out, thinking about the image number 1, can you bring it back? And what were the scores out of 10? What did you have now? So we've already done that. So well done. And so we're feeling empowered, we're feeling calm, we're feeling centered, and we've created a more positive trigger. So well done, everybody. So at the beginning of the day, I did promise that the opportunity for that complimentary roadmap session, and I'll just put it in the chat box because I haven't put it there yet. I'll just go and grab that link for you and I'll whack it in there. So if anyone wants to reach out to me, you can. And that is a link to my messenger on my Facebook for Fork in the Road coaching. So if you want to grab one of those free 1 hour, 45 minutes to an hour sessions via Zoom like this, where I can take you through these kinds of processes, and you want to have a bit of a clearing, and it's no obligation, so it's totally complimentary. So it's really just to show people what I do and to give you a positive experience of what mindset coaching can do for you. So click in that little link and just say, let's chat, and I'll respond and get back to you. There's also a presentation which I've got, which I'll email to everyone, which has my details on it, and you can reach out there too. So that's that link there. So that's it. So that's that one. Now I think that was my last slide. I'm pretty sure. Let's just double check. And there it is there. And this is the last couple of slides here. So the complimentary session was the roadmap session. So just click in there and send me an email tonight. We'll be fine. And then I'll give you that session, no problems at all. I love sharing this stuff. As you can tell, I really enjoy it. To claim that session. So just say, let's chat, or send me an email, say, hi Matt, love the session, love to catch up, whatever. And we'll arrange a time to do a Zoom. Now, are there any questions? I see there's the chat box. Any questions that anyone has? So thank you, Leslie, for coming along. Thank you for the energy. Sonia, thank you. Fantastic. Lovely to meet you. And Lily, thank you so much. So is there any questions that you'd like to... thank you, Rochelle, Mana. Do we automatically get your slides? Yes. So if you're on the Eventbrite, I've got your email. Now, if you've come through Meetup, email me your email address, and I can put you on the mailing list for because I send like a MailChimp out to, this is the program that sends out emails to everybody. And so I'll give you these slides as to exactly how to do it. I might even, oh, thank you so much, Manna. That's awesome. That's great. So yeah, I need to learn about where that button lives for controlling people's volume because people are mucking around in the background. That's okay. So fantastic. Thank you, Manna. Thank you, Rochelle. And thank you, Sonia, Leslie, Lily. Fantastic. Oh, I sent that to Lily. I just realised. Hang on a second. Just a second. Everybody in the meeting. There's my email address there. If that thing didn't work, I've just realised I sent it to Lily only. So that's to everybody. And that's my email address. So just send me an email tonight and I'll still honour that freebie, the complimentary session, which will give you a really nice point A, point B, or the Google Map search between, depending on what it is you need. But I'll bring these kind of mindset techniques to help you, really move forward and hopefully handle lockdowns, etc. a little bit better, or move you forward so you're still moving forward and not holding yourself back. Because the last session I did, which was Energy Booster, it's because no one was moving forward. We were all locked down and wondering, are we going to keep on being locked down and not progressing our life in any way, shape or form? So that's why I did that one. And this one is about getting rid of those negative triggers so we can handle life a bit better. Are there any questions? I forgot to mention like and dislike technique would be great to learn in future sessions. No worries. Well, we certainly have the like to dislike in there as a technique. And it's got some similarities to this one, but different actually in other ways. This one's a nice generalization. As you can see, it's an ideal self, and your unconscious mind sort of gets tricked into thinking, hang on, this is who I am now, and starts putting things in place. And so the self-sabotage reduces, a little bit more open, and you start approaching the world a little bit better. So, I hope you've had a great time tonight. It's 8:28. I've done pretty well. I'd like to try and keep this to 90 minutes so I don't take up too much time. Thank you, Lily. Thank you so much for the applause. Are there any questions? Feel free to unmute yourself if you have any questions, or turn on your screen if you so desire, and I can chop it off at the end so it doesn't show up. Thank you, Denise. Thank you for coming along. I really enjoy doing these. I do them for free anyway because I enjoy it, right? I enjoy the energy backwards and forwards. Thank you so much, Manna, Sonia, Leslie, Lily. Thank you very much. I'll bring myself onto a gallery view so I can see you all. And I've had a great time. I've really enjoyed sharing this with you. Any comments, ahas, takeaways, anything you'd like to share? Sometimes we swim around in the generality, don't we? We swim around in the sort of the surface level. We never actually just ask questions to see, well, is this real? Why is this even here? We just kind of hold on to it until we actually find a process like this, which can get under the surface and you can actually start to let it go. So it's actually more powerful than, I was originally led to believe this process was just for things like nail biting, which is like, I thought, I want to practice my NLP a bit more. I want to do the nail biting thing. And then I deep dived on it. I realized, you can actually stop people smoking. You can release old regrets. You can do all sorts of things with this, with a bit of other change work with it, which is what I sort of wove into this tonight. You're like eliciting your reality strategies to where your real picture lives in your space is a really powerful thing to start to change who you think you are if you can put an ideal self there. There's a fantastic metaphor for that. It's imagine if you're in the middle of nowhere and you're being picked up by a bus, and thank goodness, here comes the bus, and we're going to be taken to our destination. And you've got your backpack on. You get on the bus, and you see in the driver's seat there's a 6-year-old little girl, and you look left and you look right, and you think, where's the driver? And this little girl's going to drive the bus. And you think, I'm not getting on this bus. This little girl driving the bus. No way, Jose. I'm not getting on this bus. Where's your dad? Where's your mum? Someone's got to drive this bus. And what happens is we get on that bus and we sit down and we let the 6-year-old drive the bus sometimes. We don't even realise it. Instead of just, there, you can sit in the passenger seat and you can keep me company and you can stroke them and you're all good. But the reality is we all have, in different variety of ways, 6-year-olds driving our bus at different times.
Yeah.
That's what the anger is. That's what the sadness is. It's So it's you don't realise until you get into this sort of field and the work that we do, how a 5-year-old, 6-year-old, whatever, even a 15-year-old version of yourself can have had a really big impact because you've made a decision back here in the unconscious that something's not right. But that's not appropriate anymore when we're, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, right? Years of age. So that's a really good observation, and I'm really rapt that you've had a nice little sort of shift of realisation. Well, we're all happy, we're all good. Well, then it's 8:33. I'm 3 minutes over my trying to lasso myself to 90 minutes. Thank you so much, everyone, for jumping on. Send me an email tonight, and I'll honour that freebie if anybody's keen, which is a nice little session. I call it the roadmap session. My coaching's called Fork in the Road, so I figured that was a nice little segue. And thank you so much for joining me. Thank you.
I'd like to just say before everyone goes, I mean, I've been on the receiving end of quite a few of your sessions now, and I think the thing that blew me away originally, because I went, oh look, what have I got to lose? I'll do this initial session with you, and I thought it's going to be, you're going to try and sell me steak knives at the end, whatever, we know that's how it works. And I was really amazed when I got off the phone with you. I think our first session was by phone, and I'm like, you didn't actually try to sell me anything, you just really wanted to help. And I had this experience of being heard for the first time in such a long time when I first spoke to you. And I think in every session, I mean, for me, these group ones are great because it kind of polishes things up. But knowing where we go in private sessions, I almost find the group ones a little frustrating because I know how much deeper we go in private sessions. So with Lily's question of, where did it come from? I mean, my experience, Lily, for what it's worth, and I'm not trying to sell Matt to you because I'm not on the commission or anything, but, you get the answers to those things when you have that session. And, if you're feeling called to do that first session, I would really do it. It's kind of valuable for me. And I mean, I had a session with Matt yesterday, so I'm going straight into a group session after a private session while I'm still processing the private one yesterday and things. But it's in such a way that's really supportive. You really feel like you've kind of been heard with that. So if you're thinking about it, as I said, I'm not trying to sell Matt or anything to you, but if you're thinking about doing that free session, I think it's such an incredibly generous offer that Matt does that I would really recommend it. And I know, I've seen a few therapists, for want of a better term, and Matt's the one I continue to see, and that's why I shared it with a few people with this situation. And, even if you only get 5% out of a group session, it's kind of 5% I didn't have 2 hours ago. So thank you so much for your time tonight, Matt.
No, thank you, Leslie, for that incredible plug. Appreciate it. Unexpected, unsolicited. Honestly, I didn't know that she would do that. Thank you so much, Leslie. That's very much appreciated. So I'll wrap it up there with you guys. Thank you so much. I'll let you get back to your evening. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it, and I'll see you all very soon.
Okay, bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.